happy Thursday. We are excited to be back with another awesome guest. Today, we have with us an incredible graphic artist, and I can't wait to hear more from him. Before we get started, I do want to let you know that we are halfway through our interview series. We have an incredible guest lineup that is available to see on our website. So these interviews will go all the way through the end of November. And if you would like to see that guest lineup, you can visit our website, reachandteach.rocks. We hope that you'll join us each week for these interview series. And don't forget, it does include a free corresponding worksheet for your students. Also, if you have questions for our guest, please drop them into the chat or into the comment section, and we will be sure to get those answered before the interview ends today. So, Daniel, thank you so much for being with us.
Hi.
Would you mind taking just a few minutes to introduce yourself, tell us who you are, where you're from, and what you do?
My name is Daniel Longman. I'm a graphic artist, graphic designer, maker, I guess you could say. I'm from Illinois, right in the middle of Illinois. So right in the middle of the cornfield where I came from, very small town. It was fun growing up there because you could do whatever you wanted out in the woods. But yes, you had fun, whatever. I grew up knowing that I always wanted to do art and design. I like making things, I like designing and drawing and whatever I could, and then decided to go to school for it. And then just throughout my career, just taking the chances I did and seizing the opportunities that were given to me. Got to become a designer for Universal Parks and Resorts in their marketing team and their learning and development team, and then eventually into their creative team, which was for new rides and attractions and theme parks and whatever they designed. So that was really cool to get to do. And then now I'm currently working at a company that does custom playing cards and board games and all kinds of print stuff. So it's really cool to get to design that kind of stuff and kind of help other artists right now get their stuff out there. So
that is very cool. And it's so crazy to think about. I know for me, I've never really stopped and thought like, oh, who designs board games? But I can imagine that's a really cool career.
It's really rewarding. Yeah.
Yeah. So could you tell us a little bit about what your daily activities look like? So I'm sure it's probably different every day, but when you get up, when you go to work, when you clock in, you may not clock in, but when you go to work, what does that look like for you? And what duties, responsibilities do you have?
Well, when I've got a 6-year-old, so the morning is always, usually taken up by that real quick, getting a kid ready. But going to work, it's when I get there, I get in, turn on my computer, and of course there's always like emails. You got to go through what you did the day before and kind of follow up with clients. Right now is what I'm doing. It's working for and designing things for other people. So, and it's not just one for our company, but for many people. They're sending their projects in, and we're designing it for them or laying it out. They're sending us things that they've already designed, and we are just getting it ready for printing and production work. So then just kind of go out through the day and just kind of try to keep all my projects in order and make sure to follow up with everybody. And then leave, actually feeling really satisfied at the end of the day. Get to drive home and come home to my beautiful family and house and here in Florida, which is awesome. I love living in Florida now, except for the heat. It's weird. But pretty much day to day, that's how it goes.
Yeah, you really can't beat the beaches in Florida. So, I mean, sunny weather, wonderful weather in Florida. So when you say that you work with different clients and you keep your projects organized and things like that, when a client comes to you guys, when you have a project to work on, do you get to be 100% involved in that creative process, or do they already have an idea in mind of what they're looking for? What does that creation process look like for you?
It's all over the board. Sometimes it is from scratch. We'll have clients that have nothing. They just say, I want to do something like this. and they have an idea and they've got things laid out potentially. Or we've got people that they've spent, years designing something, and they just need us as the professionals to make sure it comes to fruition, to produce their ideas for them, which is really cool. And the same thing happened when I worked in marketing. We got to do great ideas from scratch, like nothing had ever been done before for this campaign, or let's come up with some ideas and start it from scratch. Or you would have your marketing people. They have tactics that they want done, and they said, this is what we want. Can you produce this? So there's a lot of different types of design. There's out of the box blue sky stuff you get to do with kind of creative and new attractions, new ideas, new marketing things. And then there's prescribed design, which is, I need this done and I need your hands, who is a designer, to get this done. Because I know people just randomly ask me like, hey, can you put a PowerPoint together? And I'm like, oh, well, okay, you can, but I'm like, oh, they want someone with an eye or the skill set to do that. And I sometimes forget that that's a skill set that people have. I cannot do accounting. I cannot keep the finances of this house in order. I asked my wife, I'm like, because she's super analytical, she's got that. I start to understand like, oh yeah, I actually do have something that other people can't do, or don't want to do, or have an eye to do. And it finally clicks, on a daily basis. So like, yeah, actually, I get to do this, and I get paid to do it.
And I think sometimes that's difficult for everybody to maybe realize the own skills and talents that they have within them, because it just comes natural to them. Could you tell us a little bit about your journey from high school to where you are now? What did that look like for you? Is this something you always wanted to do, or did you have some, twists and turns along the way?
Well, there's a lot of twists and a lot of figuring out what I actually wanted to do. There was always the overarching, like, I feel like I want to do this, but I didn't know exactly how I was going to accomplish that, what I was going to do. When I was in high school, I was gearing towards aerospace engineering. I loved math, calculus, science. That was mind blowing for me, like outer space and all that. I loved it. But I also love design. And I thought maybe I could merge those two, like as an artist as well as a scientist, mixing them together. And then just realized that, that probably wasn't for me. I wasn't going to have the same rewarding feeling of designing, rockets, all the internal workings of an engine versus, a work of art, like those are works of art on their own, but something that I feel is more aesthetically pleasing and visual. And I love miniatures. I always loved building small things like miniature houses and just, tiny, anything that's tiny. I love it. So ridiculous. So I went to Chicago, got an internship up there when I went to college for design, and worked for the Bradford Exchange designing miniature villages and little collectibles for people's houses. And then, I was like, what, I kind of want to try Florida. I want the theme park feeling. I want to do it on a big scale, like let's design really big. So I went down to Disney on the college program, which was a great opportunity to do. Learned a lot as far as like guest service and that kind of stuff, and how to interact with people and deal with situations. Growing up in a very small town, you didn't really have is that broad of there's lots of people here, and this is a lot of learning and growing. But then finally just working my way through the theme park industry and getting to Universal and moving up and just taking whatever opportunity I could to continue a career in design. Whenever I saw an opportunity to move forward and focus more of my day-to-day on designing something and using that skill set, I would take that opportunity. Sometimes it was a risk. It would be temporary positions that would end, and I didn't know what was going to happen at the end of that. And it was scary, but I had to take the chance because I wanted to keep moving forward, wanted to keep doing that as a career. But yeah, I never expected to be, working in a company designing, playing cards and card games and tarot cards and board games and that kind of stuff. If I look back in high school and say, this is what you're doing when you're 35, I've been like, what? I'm going to live in Florida and do what? So it's a journey for everybody. You never know what you're going to do. Like, when you're a kid, everyone's like, oh, you could be president one day. And you're like, yeah, you could try, but you never know what's going to happen when you get to that age. Like you gotta find your own way.
I think that's so true. When you're in high school, it's hard to imagine what your future career is going to look like. And I think just good advice for everyone is, keep your options open. Be sure to be open to new opportunities, because you never know where it's going to lead you, and it could turn into a really fun career.
Well, that's the thing too. When I went to college, I went for design. But the first year at University of Illinois, you didn't have your major yet. You went in as a foundations art, and then you built a portfolio through the first year, and then you applied to the different majors. So there was, painting, sculpture, graphic design, industrial design. Like there was, you kind of understood what you actually wanted to do by the end of your first year. And I went towards industrial design because I liked physically building things and designing things that were going to be tangible in a 3D space. The product design, packaging design, boxes, that kind of stuff. Or there was graphic design, and everyone thinks graphic design, that's design. But people don't realize that graphic design actually is a lot of typography. It's like dealing with, fonts and, getting, stuff to lay out. Like the textbook you would use in school, that was done by a graphic designer. That was not done by like an author of a book. They wrote the content, but then they had a graphic designer lay that book out, which is a lot of work. Just doing a pamphlet is a ton of graphic design work versus an entire book, So that's a whole different aspect of design that people don't realize. That, they think of the title, graphic designer. It's like, well, there's so many different types of graphic designer there out there. There's graphic artists, there's illustration. A lot of people think graphic designer, they think illustrator. They don't. That's what illustrators do. They're the ones creating like the art pieces and stuff like that. Graphics designers are the ones that do the layout and understanding, the basics of design and how things read on a page, how things look, together and aesthetically, line up. And I said too, there's the different types of design. There's the prescribed, which is that I want this designed like this, and then you use your hand to do it. Or there's the blue sky, you get to design the way you want, and that's kind of how the graphic design works too, in that way.
That's incredible. Honestly, I'm one of those people that have never thought about who puts together a textbook. That's really neat to think about, and to understand that almost every business, every company, every entity out there probably has a need for graphic design in some way or some element, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's most companies that I've worked with, like the major ones like Universal or like Disney or like they have their own in-house design team. So they would, those design teams would work on marketing or like, the theme parks, the actual rides and stuff like that. But then you've got agencies out there that are just design agencies that work for whatever companies out there. So somebody who has a business that doesn't know, they want a website built, they would go to an agency, and that agency would take them on as a client, and you would design their website or their logo or their business cards, whatever. That all, either you do it in-house for a big company or you work for an agency and get new projects every day,
Yeah. So could you talk a little bit about some of the projects that you've worked on when you were at Universal or just throughout your career? What are some of those big projects that you could talk about?
What really cool is in marketing, in my portfolio too, you can see like there's this impact. It was a nonprofit. It was for our workplace giving. So it was for charity. So it's kind of cool. I got to, do design for charity. Felt really good. But get to use art for that. So it was print materials. So you had to design this whole campaign. So when people think about, designing something for a company or a campaign, you're not just doing a poster. You're doing a poster, rack cards, like little pamphlets, brochures. There's elements that you'll need for websites. There's elements you would need for if they're doing video, or like a little commercials and stuff. There's so many different elements that are involved with a design campaign. As a designer, when you take one of those on, you're starting from scratch, and you're building every little element. And then you'd think that, like, oh, it's just me. Like, no, you're on a team of people. You're working with art directors who are making sure the message is correct. Then you're working with other designers just to bounce ideas off of. You're 3 or 4 of you are working on the same project together to make sure it's the best it can be. And then you've got your strategists, the marketing people that are wanting to make sure that it's saying the right thing. It's going to biggest return on investment, that kind of stuff. So you've got so many different people touching that one project, that you're all responsible for. You're all responsible for the outlook and the design of it. So some really cool ones we got to do for Universal, like the annual pass stuff was kind of fun to help that team work with that. And then the workplace giving was really fun. And then, of course, working the Universal, I got to move and creative, get to help build some props and design some stuff for the Hagrid ride, which was really cool. To be able to walk through like the queues and see that, and you're like, I built that.
Yes.
I didn't make it that, or just getting to see stuff in the theme parks, or even a billboard. When you design a billboard and you're driving down, I-4, and you see this billboard up there, you're like, oh, I had a hand in that. It's huge. It's real life. It's not just on my computer screen anymore. So it's kind of neat to see those. And then like that's like an idea for like a pass holder mailer. Like you would mail that to somebody that bought an annual pass, and they would, that just keeps them coming back for more, or like little videos and stuff like that. There's the impact. That poster there was really cool to work with the team on that one. Glenn, really cool guy. Used to work with him over there, so he's had a huge hand in me getting to work in that project there. Really nice guy.
Yeah. Well, we will definitely link your website with your portfolio onto this video. That way students can check out your work and see the cool projects that you've worked on over the last, or I guess over your entire career. That's exciting.
It's funny is I didn't realize like all this, like my passions, for like paper art and like doing miniatures, I've been doing since I was a kid. I didn't realize I was doing it. Like I remember in my high school, in our art classroom, we had little cubbies to keep our stuff in, and I dedicated my cubby my senior year. I made a little bedroom in it, and then covered it with plexiglass, and just kind of left it that way. I think it's still there as is. Bring down the room, how many years later now? But it's just I realized back like I made a little miniature back then, didn't even like what I was doing, so.
That's incredible to think about. And I know that anytime you can have a career that is within your passion, that you get excited to get up and go to work every day, that's so fulfilling.
It is. I mean, obviously there's going to be days and there's going to be projects that you don't want to work on because you're like, oh, I'm just not inspired by this or whatever. But you still get to do that. Like there's so many other things you could be doing. For money just to survive, is a job. I've taken all kinds of jobs just to keep afloat. When times are tough. But when you actually get to step into your career and get to do that every day, it's really rewarding and mentally enlightening, I guess you could say. You just feel so much happier as a person, and there's been opportunities for me to make a lot more money doing other jobs, but there's no reward in that for me. There's no why would I be happy doing that? I'd have more money, I could maybe afford a bigger house and have a super fancy car, but then what is that? Like I'm at work 40 hours of the day of the week. Majority of my day is not here in our house, it's at work. So why wouldn't you want to be happy doing that? Like why would you want to be passionate? So, I've passed up those opportunities to keep doing what I'm doing. And it's taken a while to get to where I'm at, but just I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Yeah, that is such good advice for students. I know so many times young people think about careers that they can make a lot of money or feel like they're super successful by making a lot of money. But so many times the careers that fulfill you are the ones that you are going to experience so much success in. So I definitely challenge students to think about that, think about what they're passionate about as they're thinking about their future career. So. Well, I have one more question for you, and then we're going to open it up to questions from students. So my question is, what is some actionable advice for students who are interested in this type of career? What could they do right now while they're still in high school to kind of get them jump started on this path?
One thing I would have loved back in early 2000 when I was going to design was to not just build my skills as a drawer, as an artist, but look into what's currently developing in the art world. So right now, I think students really need to look into platforms and ideas that they would want to move into when they start studying it as a career. Like UX and UI design is a real big one to learn that, which is the user interface or the user experience design, which is a lot of website and web design. So getting familiar with what you would potentially be doing in the real world. Because I just thought it was draw, paint something. Like, no, there's a lot of disciplines and discipline out there that you would want to start maybe focusing on, looking into. It would have been great if I would have known that before, heading in. I might have had a head start. And then 3D modeling is going to be a big one. Working on 3D models if you can. Whatever, like SketchUp is a great free program to just start looking at a 3D space and understanding that world. Because no matter what you do, there's going to be some aspect of working with somebody doing something in the 3-dimensional versus just online web banners or something like that.
Yeah. And so what I'll probably get you to do is send us a few maybe helpful links that we could put in the description of this video. And that way, if students want to visit those websites and learn more, they definitely can do that as well too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, good. So let me get a few questions from students. One of the first ones that I have, and you may have already touched on this a little bit, is what are some software programs that I could learn now that are maybe free that would be helpful for me to get started?
I know they're not free for right now, but of course the Adobe Suite is a great one to start with. Photoshop, I know a lot of people are straight up, they work with Photoshop. Learning a lot of the intos with that one, but don't negate Illustrator. Illustrator is a big one to use in the industry. Once you get in the actual professional world of design, you're going to be using things like InDesign for layouts and Illustrator for production and actual illustration and making it come to life. Photoshop is your crutch. For getting your art and everything to look just right. So that's kind of your editing, getting it right. But then don't stop. Try to learn Illustrator and InDesign as well. And then I think there's another software program out there called Procreate. I have not used it myself, but I heard it's very similar to Photoshop. So look into that as well.
Yeah, great answers. So the next question that I have is, I am very creative, but have no artistic ability. Are there any tools that I can use to make my visions come to life?
That's actually a really good question because when I worked in marketing, people had some really creative ideas. They wanted to create this campaign or do something really neat, but they need a designer to make it look just right. So don't negate the going into the design field, the creative field, because you can't draw or something. Like there are art directors out there that can't even hold a pencil right. They're there to get the vision across. So getting in the field of art production, design production too, there's a lot of that that you can start maybe looking into and focusing that way. and working with other artists. Just find someone who you get along with, who you think you can work with, that might have that hand that can do the design, and work together, because they might have the skill set to paint something really beautiful, but they don't have an inspiration for their next piece or for what they want to do. And the two of you working together, it's just going to be maybe a really cool product at the end.
Yeah. So it sounds like that marketing works very closely with graphic design. Are there other industries or career paths that work very closely with graphic design, but maybe aren't exactly graphic design that students could think about?
Well, when I went into the theme park world, obviously there's a lot of there's the graphic team, or there's the person that's the painters and stuff like that, working with the team that is designing the attraction. Like, there's the blue sky designers there, and you're the hands making it come to life in the physical sense. There's also illustrators that need concept design. There's a lot of architecture firms that need AutoCAD and designers to make things look right. There's a lot of concept design out there too. So sometimes people have these ideas, and they can work with a concept illustrator, or you could look into becoming a concept illustrator for all different types of companies out there.
Yeah. Okay. So we have one more question. And this question is, I am interested in working in graphic design, but I'm not sure I want to go to college. Is there other options for me to gain experience, or do I absolutely need a college degree?
That is one thing I did want to touch on. Now, depending on what you want to do with design, there are certain degrees that you would maybe want to get from that. But students, do not underestimate a trade school. That is a huge opportunity for you to actually learn the trade of being a painter, of being a set designer, of being a prop master, just or even art director, that kind of stuff. Like, don't underestimate a trade school, because when you break it down, art and design, it's a trade. It is not some master's in business degree kind of a situation. It is a hands-on thing that you're doing. So please consider doing a trade school too, and not having hundreds of $1,000s worth of debt. Getting a degree that you might use, or might go into something completely different once you're done with that.
Yeah, I love that so much, because so many times students just think they're expected to go to college, but there's so many careers out there to where experience and learning skills, developing those talents can go so much further than having that college degree with, like you said, lots and lots of debt.
Yes. And that's always something too to consider. Like, I don't want to say don't go to college. Yes, if you can, definitely go. But maybe that's something you do later, after getting into the field a little bit. Once you go to a trade school, there's art schools out there that are just specifically for art and design. There's a few. There's like SCAD, and there's Ringling, and then there's major colleges like I went to, that have a design department, and you got your degree just in there. So don't think you can't do it. There's junior colleges. There's so many options that are out there that you might not realize, versus just having to go to Harvard, like you do.
Right. Well, Daniel, thank you so much for being with us today. I feel like you have given so much insight and wisdom to our students. Is there anything that you would like to add before we leave today?
Don't ever pass up an opportunity. Try it out. It might be scary to think, oh, I need to work on this project. If someone wants me to try something, try it out, because I've failed many a times. I've tried to do a certain piece. I've painted something and it just looks awful when it's done. But I learned from it, and so take those opportunities whenever you can. So when you get out in the real world, just don't feel held back, from trying that new thing out.
Yes, great advice. Thank you for being with us. Thank you to all of our viewers. We will definitely link Daniel's website and some of the other useful, helpful links that he mentioned as well in the comment section so that you guys can check them out and learn more about this career path. We will be back next week with 2 new guests on Tuesday and Thursday of next week. So be sure and check out our website to see who is next for our guest lineup. Thank you for being with us today. We had a great interview.